Donald Trump moved to openly punish India for its unwillingness to stop buying Russian oil and began actively getting closer to Pakistan, with whom India has had a long-standing conflict. Relations between the United States and India have become strained due to Donald Trump's remarks about tariffs and Russian oil. In the past 2 days, the media has been filled with headlines saying that India has changed its mind and will not stop buying Russian oil, even despite Trump's threats of tariffs. Why this is only half true, I explained in the previous episode on this YouTube channel. In this episode, we'll talk about how Trump is trying to force India to take the side of good by openly getting closer to Pakistan, which has long had tense relations with India. And not so long ago, let me remind you, these two countries were actually at war with each other. Moreover, Trump is even teasing, saying that maybe India will soon be buying that very oil from Pakistan. My name is Alexei Peshi. Today is August 3rd. Let's dive into this topic together, but before we start, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, give it a like, leave any comment you want, and be sure to subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pechi News. The link to it is in the description of this video. So, against the backdrop of statements from Indian officials that they are not yet ready to give up cheap Russian oil, Trump moved from threats to action and began attacking India not only with sanctions but also by openly and clearly getting closer to India's enemy Pakistan. Literally, in February, United States President Donald Trump welcomed Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, in the Oval Office, hugged the Prime Minister of India and called him a great friend. But just 6 months later, the relationship between the leaders deteriorated, which led to Trump imposing sanctions this week. In a series of such aggressive social media posts, Trump criticized India's trade barriers, calling them tough and disgusting. And he put the world's fastest growing economies on par with America's adversary, writing that India and Russia are burdened with dead economies. That's a quote. So Trump is directly stating that now India is in the same league as a global outcast, meaning Russia. But he hinted that New Delhi still has a chance to get out of this pit. Like, you shouldn't be anywhere near these loser Russians at all. Although Trump's statement that he doesn't care what kind of pit India throws itself into economically already indicated that things in the relationship between Trump and Modi are very bad. The outburst from the United States president stunned Indian officials, leaving analysts struggling to understand how the relationship between the leaders, who until recently had a strong personal rapport, deteriorated so quickly. And it's important to note that Indian experts are already openly saying that Trump has clearly turned this into a very personal campaign against Modi. They say that Modi touched some strings of his soul, so to speak, and now it's a personal matter. They say it has nothing to do with politics, and when something becomes personal for Trump, it will have dangerous consequences. Again, a few weeks ago, Trump hinted that a trade agreement with New Delhi would inevitably be concluded soon, since India is eager to prevent the introduction of 26% tariffs. As a result, this week Trump is still imposing these tariffs, almost as if to mock them. Trump is still lowering the tariff and on Wednesday announced that he is imposing a 25% tariff on India. Well, that is 1% lower than it was before the negotiations started. The United States president also added that India will be subjected to an indefinite penalty for purchasing Russian oil and Russian weapons. The government under Narendra Modi stated that it is studying the consequences of Trump's decision, and officials told the Financial Times that they still expect the return of the American delegation to India for trade negotiations at the end of this month. As India's Minister of Commerce Piyush Goyal stated, quote, "We will take all necessary steps to protect and promote our national interests." Well, United States officials are clearly making it known that Washington's resentment toward India is mainly related to India's purchase of Russian oil, which is the largest source of supply for India. They say that this is the main issue, not some trade barriers in India. And so, United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio, in an interview with Fox News this Thursday, called the oil purchases irritating. And he added that, quote, "India is essentially helping to finance Russia's military actions in Ukraine." And Washington's resentment found an outlet that India really didn't like. At stake are not only the personal relationship between Trump and Modi, or even India's economic ties with its largest trading partner. No, Trump is also currently getting closer to India's main rival, Pakistan. Just a few weeks after such a brief but still military conflict between the South Asian rivals, India was confident that its growing role in the world would help it come to an agreement with Trump. They thought there was no need to make any tough compromises with the United States of America on any key political issues. India's influence will be considered by the Americans. But it turned out that Washington can strike a little differently. And here's a bit of history. During the Cold War, relations between the United States and India were tense, while New Delhi maintained close ties with Moscow. However, over the past 2 decades, the countries have built relationships in defense and technology that have been widely seen as one of the most effective responses by the democratic world to expansionist China. In February of this year, the two countries even announced plans for a new decade-long defense partnership and said they intended to agree on the first tranche of a bilateral trade agreement by the fall. So these are quite ambitious plans. According to analysts and officials from India and the United States, during the subsequent negotiations, the parties reached a general agreement to reduce tariffs and open markets in a number of sectors. At the same time, India insisted on protecting its politically sensitive markets for food grains and dairy products. However, the draft agreement remained completely unsigned by Donald Trump due to the deterioration of his personal relationship with Narendra Modi. But why is that? Everything seemed to be going so smoothly, didn't it? And here we move on to the military armed conflict between India and Pakistan. In the spring of this year, New Delhi was outraged by Trump's interference in the situation. During and after the May conflict with Pakistan, which began after an attack in Indian-controlled Kashmir that resulted in the deaths of 26 civilians, India accused Pakistan of the attack but denied its own involvement and called for a neutral investigation. The government of Narendra Modi also openly disputed Trump's claim that he allegedly acted as a mediator in the ceasefire and that he used those very trade relations for this purpose. The official Indian report on the June 17 phone conversation between Donald Trump and Narendra Modi states the following, quote, "At no stage during the entire sequence of events were there any discussions at any level about an India-United States trade agreement or any proposals for United States mediation between India and Pakistan." That is, India said, listen, yes, nothing, Trump didn't influence anything at all. It's all a lie, there were no discussions, Trump is not a mediator. Pakistan, on the other hand, nominated Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize, noting his role in resolving the crisis as they stated. Moreover, Pakistan went even further here and offered the United States president, who is inclined to make deals, to hand over one of the most important Islamic State of Iraq and Syria militants, Haram, and also offered deals covering cryptocurrencies, artificial intelligence, hydrocarbons, and critical minerals. In June, Asim Munir, who is the commander-in-chief of the army and effectively the leader of Pakistan, was invited to a 2-hour lunch at the White House. Moreover, almost simultaneously with the introduction of tariffs on India this week, Trump announced an agreement with Pakistan to develop the country's huge oil fields. And in his statements, deemed seemingly designed specifically to anger New Delhi, Trump suggested that Pakistan might one day, quote, sell its oil to India. By the way, Pakistan also received tariffs, but they are lower, or 19%, while India has 25%. And here's an interesting point. So far, Trump's policy has been aimed at appeasing Putin. India had no problems buying oil from Russia, and India was confident that it could continue making money from this cheap Russian oil. And Trump won't be against it at all. Now, these purchases have suddenly become a problem because Trump's interest in a ceasefire has increased. And now, the most interesting part. Donald Trump's tactic of getting closer to Pakistan is already bearing fruit, even in India's domestic politics. Opponents of Narendra Modi in the Indian parliament were quick to take advantage of the situation to attack the Prime Minister, whose authority is rarely seriously questioned in India. And now, at the end, I'll translate a short but truly striking quote from the leader of the Indian opposition, Rahul Gandhi, quote, "Everyone knows that the Indian economy is dead. President Trump merely stated this fact. So the continuation of this story is definitely yet to come. I'll leave it at that for now. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. That's all for now.